I'm Marcalee Alexander. I am a physiatrist or a specialist in physical medicine and rehabilitation, and I've worked in the field of spinal cord injury for many years. I've worked in research. I've worked taking care of patients with pain, other types of disabilities, and I have a lot of passion for the future of people with disabilities and also for their quality of life. So I'm taking on a new adventure this year, and I'm going to start walking. I'm actually going to walk so that I can emphasize how people with disabilities are impacted on a day-to-day, week-to-week, year-to-year basis by extremes in weather. Because I think these changes in weather are more frequent, and people need to deal with them and be able to live their lives with them. So I think one of the most important issues is making sure people are able to have the best quality of life they can have. And so I've spent a lot of my career looking at areas that are a little bit different than other people will look at. I've studied sexual function after spinal cord injuries a lot, and actually right now I spend a lot of time helping people wean off opiates. So I really focus on quality of life issues in my work. And one of the things I think that really helps people and gives us all a better quality of life is being able to be outdoors and to be active. And so what happened about a year ago was I was giving a lecture, and I was going from the hotel to where the lecture was supposed to be held. And I said, you know, I'm not going to take the bus. It's only about a mile away, and I wanted to walk. And then I got out, and I got my phone and looked out where the walk was, and I got in the road, and it was very dangerous. And so I said to myself, my God, this is crazy. You know, in the United States, you really can't just walk. And so I got this idea, which since then has kind of become my dharma. It's something I need to do, and I decided I was going to walk from Canada to Key West. And the reason I'm going to do it is to highlight the issues now that are happening for people with disabilities, especially with weather extremes, situations like hurricanes or the polar vortex or the droughts and the fires and the extreme rain that we have. Because I think when these events happen, we don't pay attention to people with disabilities. We never see what happens when there's a hurricane for the person that got stuck home. A couple weeks ago, I'm giving a talk, and I Googled Hurricane Michael and dogs. And I got 240 hits on Hurricane Michael and dogs. And then I Googled Hurricane Michael and wheelchairs, and I got 0 hits. So I think really we don't realize that when there is extreme weather, we need to care about our neighbors, and we need to realize what they're going through. So I just decided that I'm going to walk, and this is what I'm walking for. And I was fortunate to be able to work with United Spinal Association. They've actually given grants to people with spinal cord injuries that were impacted in like Maria in Puerto Rico. And so this is an organization that has helped people in this area, and that's why they are the recipients of any benefits that I can give from my walk that come up. But also what I'm doing in terms of the walk is really trying to get the word out there to the rehabilitation community, specifically rehabilitation hospitals and academic medical centers, so that when patients are in rehab programs, when they have a stroke or they have a spinal cord injury or they have other acute events, that part of their rehab will be for them that they're trained, they're taught about, okay, what do you do when there's a hurricane coming? What do you do if there's an extreme cold spell? And so that people will be more aware of this as something that's going to bother them in the future. Right. On the other hand, too, though, I want to make sure that the media does realize this, too, because if we think about extreme weather and we think about, for instance, the extreme end of extreme weather, which is climate change, what we see now are polar bears. And I think that's really far away and doesn't really, they might be cute, but they're not really here. And aside from maybe seeing them in pictures or maybe in a zoo somewhere, people don't really feel like they're cute or they're real and somebody that they care about so much. But I think that you know, your neighbor that might have multiple sclerosis or might have an amputation or a spinal cord injury is really who gets impacted by these weather events. So I think we're all in this together. It's hard. You know, we used to have seasons. Now the weather changes, you know, 30, 40 degrees in a day, and so you can't just have one set of clothes out for a season like we used to do like 30, 40 years ago. Now things change day to day, and that's hard if you're able-bodied. You know, you've just got to be on top of things. You got to pay attention to the weather. But if you're not able-bodied, it's that much further. It's that much more difficult. So my new mission, my new life, I guess, I'm going to be traveling, walking with my husband, and we're going to try to walk about 10 miles a day down regular roads, stopping, seeing what's accessible, what isn't accessible, and also stopping at cities and trying to bring together academic groups, city organizations. I'm going to go to some of the mayor's offices on disabilities and try to really make sure that people are aware of the needs of persons with disabilities in extreme weather. You know, I'm talking about the U.S. right now, but it's also not just the U.S. I do some international work in spinal cord injury, and I'm involved in the International Spinal Cord Society, and same issues hurt people around the world. For instance, in spinal cord injury, people have something called poikilothermia. They can't maintain their temperature. So if the temperature goes up to 113, they would die. If the temperature goes down to 60 and they're outside for a long period of time, they would get hurt. They could die too from that. So it's not just a U.S. thing, it's an international thing, and my goal is that people pay attention, and this is part of what the world realizes is a big part of our society, and people with disabilities need to be considered as we move on. We're starting on June 21st, and in 3 months we'll get from, actually Campobello Island is where we're starting. This is where FDR summered as a child, and remember, he was our only United States president in a wheelchair. So we're starting from where FDR summered, and in 3 months period of time we'll actually have made our way all the way down to Washington, D.C. And so on September 22nd, when we're in D.C., we're actually going to also have people join us in the Day for Tomorrow. And that means that we don't know what the weather's going to be tomorrow. We don't know if we're going to have extremes tomorrow. And we would like people to get together and walk or ride or wheel around the country for this same cause. So I'm hoping that as this happens, and as I make my way down the coast, down the towns, and try to bring awareness to this topic, that other people will join in and realize it's an important cause.